Good afternoon and welcome, Mr. Rupendra, Additional Secretary, Additional Director General, Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, Dr. Puspesh Pant, Chef Ranveer Brar, Mr. Prateek Hira, Mr. Prem Sayal, Chief Rajesh Wadhwa, and of course, Mr. Rajiv Goel, who is the founder of India Food Tour and President India Food Tourism. Welcome to this webinar on Culinary Tourism, Discover India by Taste. In this times of COVID and the impact on the tourism industry, we are actually organizing these series of webinars and roundtables to see how we can actually do the recovery of the domestic tourism and how we can entice people to actually get back into the normal board post-COVID. Even during COVID, I mean, food takeaway and food delivery is allowed. So perhaps this may also actually serve as a purpose to a lot of people to see what they can actually, taste from different parts of the country in their own city. So without taking any more time, I'd like to hand over the session to Mr. Rajiv Goel, who will moderate this. And may I request him to please begin this session. And a very special welcome to all the viewers. So
perhaps... thank you, Dr. Mr. Chinoy, for the welcome note. And this is where I take it further and talk about the culinary tourism. For me, this culinary tourism is always the backbone of the existing infrastructure, because for me, I call that whoever coming to country, at least he's doing, if in a normal course, if he's coming for 5 days, at least maximum done activity within that 5 days is the food, which is 15 times he go through and eat. And for me, it was like, why not to make it interesting? And the country like India doesn't need an introduction in the world, since we have been eating healthily from the ages. Either you talk about the turmeric or you talk about the various other spices that is a part of our food habits, and which has been nowadays been recognized by the world. So without delaying and introducing everyone again, I would like to pass on this baton to Prateek ji, and would like to take his opinion about how it can help the industry, and what are the things that industry should do to incorporate such a new and mainstream travel option. Over to Prateek ji.
Hi, everybody. It's an honor to be here on this panel. And just on a lighter note, I was thinking that when this COVID happened, everybody is honing his or her skills in their kitchens. So it's going to give a very tough time to all the restaurants and hotel when they open up after COVID. So you'll do expect very choosy clients from post-COVID era. So now, having said that, we have already sort of got into an era of experiential travel, and food happens to be, in my opinion, can be a big game changer for Indian tourism. Now, people, there's a research which says that 80% of the travelers are first researching on food when they are going to any destination. About 25% of their spend is on food whenever they are traveling. So this is a very encouraging kind of a sign. And food travelers, the people who are traveling for food, they are much more informed, much more well-informed travelers than the general travelers. So that is one part of it. But then food is also a very specialized subject, in my opinion, in case of India, because I dispute that there is any kind of cuisine which can be called an Indian cuisine. It changes with every about, say, 25-50 kilometers. So you have to have a very local, regional specialization. So sometime back, we started a research which is still on, and of course there's a stopgap between this COVID issues, where we were trying to document food in each destination. So it was one destination, different cuisine kind of a research work that was going on. to introduce people to the uniqueness of the cuisine, the diversity of the cuisine, which is not only equal, but I would say much more than the culture of this land. Of course, people like Dr. Pant and Ranveer are there on the panel who have done a substantial research on this, and they will probably guide us through. But on the other note, I would also say that food is such a specialized subject where the DMCs or the business houses, the tour operators have to be really specialists when they are picking up this subject. So when we see a DMC or a general tour operator, it's kind of, know all, do all kind of a thing. So when we are talking about this particular subject, I doubt that this formula will work in case of food tourism or culinary tourism. So one has to have a proper research in place. One has to have a proper knowledge in place before placing the product in the market. Government of India has been taking food travel as a part of its cultural tourism, but it's much wider, much broader a subject to just be a part of cultural tourism. So they have to think of many things before they probably plan to open up India as a food travel destination, both for domestic and for the international clients. And it can really be a game changer. If you travel abroad, you see so many restaurants in the name of Indian restaurants, be it Pakistani or Bangladeshi, but all are doing an Indian restaurant because that's the name, or that's the cuisine that people are identifying with. So as we go further, I'll add on some more inputs. Back to you, Rajiv.
That was a great input, Prateek ji, and I thank you for this. So without delaying, I really like to pass this to Dr. Pant, and would like to take his opinion about the regional, like as Prateek ji mentioned, that how much inventory we got, inventory in terms of, as per your suggestion, which are should be the part one or phase one areas one should explore initially, and dig it deeper and make a product out of it. So I would really seek your opinion on this one. And second, that very unsaid and you can say unexplored area of a tribal food, because they've been living on the planet from quite a long time and they survive a lot of different things. So what is your take on the tribal food? So over to Dr. Saab.
No, I think, I have 2 or 3 problems with this one. We start talking of culinary tourism when we are faced with a major problem of reviving the tourism. As long as there is a lockout, as long as there are no aircrafts landing and taking off, I think we have to worry very much about what happens to tourism and travel generally in this country after the lockdown is gradually relaxed over months. And this is not only the problem of India, this is a problem globally. So even if we are talking of an international tourist, we are going to be very worried about where they are originating from and where they are headed for. And I think this is something which we can't hide. So when we are talking in terms of a product being devised or inventory being looked at, I think the major part is that we have to think in terms of not one, but many products. We have to think of a product which will probably be addressed to the well-heeled Western tourists coming, who could go out on a gourmet tour of different parts of the country, and then we devise a product for that kind of tourists. But the bread and butter, I think, is, I think Mr. Chinoy made it very clear. The 2 things are very much there. And Prateek ji also pointed out to most people having gone to kitchen now in the COVID lockout will be more demanding. They will not only be more demanding, they probably would be a little more concerned about the hygiene behind the, what you didn't see behind the counter. Very few show kitchens are there. And then you say that you are more concerned about what you are getting. The news items like, I mean, there was a very interesting point made about deliveries, even during the lockout period. But then there is a case like this in the newspaper day before yesterday, that a pizza boy delivered somewhere and then 47 people have to be in quarantine. So I think this COVID is going to traumatize us in a manner where we are going to be worried about contagion, worried about hygiene, worried about what we are eating, and whatever product we are devising or products we are devising, as I would insist, is going to have to factor in these things. I think you made a very interesting point about the tribal heritage, and I think, I'm very glad that Ranveer, my dear friend, is here, that he's been doing so much original research on the way people, our ancestors ate, and is not only a question of saying that I will take you to a destination, say for instance, I will take you to Hyderabad and I will let you experience a great biryani, I would let you experience a great baghar ke baigan, is not that way only, because the food is constantly evolving. So I might be going to a destination which might not be traditionally biryani, kebab, curries, but then suddenly have a small input. You go to Hyderabad, they're having a very interesting Saudi kind of a thing, mangan going out there, which somebody has imported from in happier times from Saudi Arabia. So I would suggest that when we go to the tribal belt is again not a billiard ball or a black box category in India. There are tribals in Northeast, there are tribals in Todas in Tamil Nadu, there are tribals in Kerala, tribals in Himachal, tribals in Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, and each tribal has a culinary heritage of its own. It might be from Mawa to my millets to so on. So we have to have a distilled essence of nutritional foods, health foods, unknown foods, what are called superfoods, and try to see how many people are really interested in experimenting with them. So I think we have to keep in mind two things. We can't go back to past all the time and go back to the tyranny of the tandoor, the myth of the Mughaliya or the curse of the curry and say, I've taken them to another level by plating them differently. So you have to be true to what comprises the Indian cuisines, not one. I'm very glad it was categorically mentioned by Prateek that there is no such thing as an Indian cuisine. But then if we are having different cuisines, different culinary streams, I think it is back again to square one. We cannot move ahead unless we confront ourselves with the problem that feeding tourists will come when they start coming, when they start moving. And one small thing before I conclude, I think the Government of India was doing a great thing of introducing the choice of food on trains. The choice, but this again, you could suit your pocket and eat what you wanted to eat. You are not being forced to eat something which the railways give you. I was looking forward to a period when you would have midway stops and you would have food malls. They already are on highways which are more affluent, going from Delhi to Chandigarh, or even on the 6-lane highway between Delhi and Moradabad now, where you could stop and from a McD to an Indian Bikaner Wala to Tadka Punjab, you had a very, of Bikaner Wala, you had a very interesting choice of regional, sub-regional cuisines. And I think the point was very well made that every 30, 40, 50 kilometers, there is a culinary seduction waiting for a tourist. But my problem is, how does that get revived when the impact of this coronavirus goes away? I think the hope is in very, very interesting rebirth of a dharma.
That was a great input, Dr. Saab. And I'm coming back to it because I'm sure this interesting input from you will bring out more questions. So without delaying it further, I pass on the button to Prem Seyalji and would like to, because we are all optimistic here and being so negativity going around because of the COVID, at least we, with this medium of webinar, and we really want our fellow travel agents to get equipped with the knowledge. Meanwhile, this is like a time where they can gain something new or prepare something new whenever the travel comes back. So this is really a big hope kind of webinar in between all crisis management, I'm sure. But for me, I took it as like, since there is a time to equip yourself with the area or knowledge that you don't have, or you can prepare your team right now. So that's how I see this opportunity of this webinar. So of course, I agree to it. There are a lot of laws and laws like when the travel going to open, when the flight's going to be there, what all countermeasures. Of course, I think the world is preparing themselves for all COVID, even smaller to the higher level of hotels. So those concerns are very well taken care. And at this moment, every industry is following those norms. I think kind of things you see around social media right now. So from the smaller to the higher level, everyone is following those basic requirements of hygiene, and everybody is also thinking in the same way or respective manner that whatever their business, what kind of hygiene it requires. So we are okay with that, and assuming that all things will be in the place and everything at like Indian movies, at the end, everything goes well, and keeping that mindset, we are going further with it, that everything goes well. And now what we have to do. So this quarantine period or lockdown period will help us to train ourselves and our teams with a new product. And at least when everything opens, so we are ready with it. This is what we are offering new. And we didn't wasted our time while just being in lockdown. We are now much more prepared, and we got a lot more to offer now as a travel industry. That's how I see this culinary tourism event at this moment. And I'm sure we are coming with more. But again, as I said, we're going to pass on. I'm going to talk less today and let pass on to Premji. Premji, over to you.
Thank you very much, Rajiv, and thank you for the invite. It's a pleasure being here. And it's a pleasure hearing Dr. Pant as always. So in these last over 20 years that we've been in business, I'll concentrate only on culinary tourism and on the subject Discover India by Taste. So in over the last 20 years that we've been in business and served over 1 million travelers by now, food and cuisine experiences have always been a key feature in all our products. And we were privileged and had the opportunity to work with some of the biggest chefs around the world, being on our cuisine tours, leading them. And we all understand and we all would agree that food plays a huge role in the way people travel today. And besides filling a need for hunger, it satisfies your desire to try new things and provides insight into a country's culture. Now, talking about cuisine tours, I believe that everybody in us has a strong desire to break from the ordinary and try unusual cuisines. I mean, with this growing desire and with the steady increase in the interest of food channels, travel shows, featuring local and regional cuisines, food documentaries, online culinary travel shows, more and more consumers are traveling to various destinations just to enjoy a new food and wine experience, giving a rise to cuisine tourism. And there we are. And thanks to a new wave of food professionals and innovative chefs, well, like the ones we have on the panel here today amongst us, who are all able to present the unique flavors and spices of India to indulge this ever-growing target market of food lovers. As tourists increasingly demand unique and authentic travel experiences, the global culinary market has been enjoying a great significant growth over the last few years. There are many names to it, for people who have started working on this product. There are many names to it. Culinary tourism, cuisine tourism, gastronomy, tasting tours, food tourism, they are basically all same, as they present unique, memorable dining and eating experiences. I mean, coming back to India, Indian food is really a feast, and all would agree that evokes all your 5 senses. The tadka or the curries, can be heard sizzling from a distance. The aromas drifting into your nostrils, the spices. The colorful mix of spices and vegetables when they're laid down in the kitchen, the spicy taste. And the most importantly, eating the meals, touching them with your bare hands, all count as experience to food tourism. Now, food tourism is not about teaching these tourists who are coming, to how to make curries. Tourists are not here to qualify as chefs, and neither is food tourism about dining luxuriously. So you have to understand it is not only about the food you eat, but more about eating adventurously, to seek out new culinary experiences in order to get a sense of a place. Like the pizza, you would understand, pizza and pasta to Italy, sushi to Japan, curries to North India, and dosas to South India. They give you a sense of a place immediately. So it automatically triggers adventure in you as we travel far and wide, in search of authentic food and beverages. Cuisine tours interestingly triggers a couple of elements. Adventure, as I've just mentioned. It also brings a lot of education as we learn about different cultures, customs, and traditions. There's a lot of storytelling being involved, history being told, which nobody can do better than, of course, Dr. Pant, whom I'm a great fan of. It brings a lot of excitement, to the food that you eat, as we discover and open our minds to new smells, flavors, textures, and heritage of the place, as he was very rightly mentioning. Now, what is the difference between other tours that we create and the products, and food tourism? Now, food tourism is, again, cuisine tourism, as I said, unlike other tours, food is the motivation for travel in cuisine tourism. In food tourism, the locations are just the stopovers, unlike in other tours, where we concentrate more on the destinations. So in food tourism, the location are just the stopovers to the next foodie destination. We in all our products have also always included the gastronomic experiences on our tours, which are often hands-on, hands-on experiences and behind-the-scene experiences, which extends beyond what we eat. It includes.
Premji, I interrupt you here, and the part of knowledge, but you are being one of the travel agents who has been using this culinary tourism product from quite a long time.
Yes.
And at this point and this platform, since there are a lot of young students are there on this platform right now, And I request everyone to post their questions on the webinar.
Sure.
On the right-hand side, there is a screen coming in because we're going to come back for the question answers very soon. We're going to give, and we really will be repeating those questions if they are really connecting to the subject today. So please post your questions on the right-hand side. There is an option on those who are watching this webinar. But as a travel agent, I would really go by your personal experience. Does this product work for you with your international partners and travelers?
So, as I said, in the last 20 years, our focus has been always on food and culinary experiences in all our products. I mean, we don't really sell lunches. Any suggestions?
Yeah, any suggestions you make to industry that those young small companies?
So this is basically my small introduction of what culinary tourism is all about and how to start working on the product part. So this is exactly what I was trying to tell that food tourism doesn't stop having a specialty dining experience by eating a great meal at a great location, by a great chef. It means taking visitors to a place they might otherwise not have seen, so they can shop and eat like locals. That's the whole idea behind it. It is also the best way to promote sustainable tourism, as we all keep talking about all the time, where we can provide our clients to an experience that makes, with local environments, society and economy. We're working with local producers, family-owned establishments, organizing culinary walks, as we quite often do, which includes taking them to visit the food carts, the komchas, those century-old street vendors, the local pubs, local breweries, wineries, those one-of-kind restaurants, that are famous for that one special thing. So the importance of the guides that we employ in all these tours, how important it is. All tours has to be guided, especially by a local person, to add to the history of that area that you are in. So guides should really talk about the food that they are the tourists are sampling, point to the shops as you keep on doing to make it more engaging. They may discuss how the food that they are eating are different from what their families cook and eat at their homes. So, and it differs from the food generally and creating interesting stories of the place and around the food all over.
Yeah.
So, and the other good point is that it's a very comprehensive product in which there's something for everybody, in this food tourism product. So, I mean, there are cooking classes which people organize from their homes to give them a glimpse of, how the local homes are. And many cooking classes take them to market tours, be it the local sabzi mandi or the spice bazaars, to add more detail to the tour. And there's a big ripple effect, on how many people can get benefited from this cross-cultural experience, and apart from serving your for guests.
Okay.
And all those who have started, a small before I end, there's a very small understanding of the culinary product, how it is linked with other products that you might also be working on. Like culinary tourism, for instance, is a subset of cultural tourism, as cuisine demonstrates a culture heavily. And the seeds of cuisine could be found in agriculture. So culinary tourism and agri-tourism are inseparably linked. And agri-tourism is linked with rural tourism. So you see how they are interconnected, all of them. And all of them are part of experiential travel. And, I said recently that Destination India presents a lot of choices to bundle, the diversity that we were talking about, right from the Wazwan in Kashmir to Chettinad cuisine in down south, and biryanis in Lucknow to Lal Mas in Rajasthan. So, I mean, even if we have to, do a 14-night program, there is absolutely, we could really present a new cuisine every night without any problem. That's the diversity of the Destination India that we have.
I think that's a great point that you mentioned, because usually if I say this is one good thing about India is that compared to other part of the world, that there's a possibility somebody is traveling for more than like 2 weeks, but there's a bigger chance that he won't repeat the same meal that we can offer as a country. So it's one of the greatest things. And now I will be taking further baton, and I really thank you, Premji, for this great input. And I'm requesting all audience who are watching this that you can post your questions, because there will be a question answer in the end. So do come up with your questions, that what you're listening and what all can be done. So let's go next. That Ranveer, I would like to take your input with your food and travel experience, and I really like to really want you to connect the history and the food together, because when somebody is visiting a country, if he's visiting a Mughal era building, what are the dishes, how we can connect with some particular food item? I'm saying, when I say Mughal term, I'm saying very broadly, but I'm trying to make a point here that we have seen a lot of different cultures, and we have a lot of different cultures in each respective states, and how we can connect those smaller things with the food, which will become a highlight of an itinerary that, like, you're visiting. For an example, I'm really going to quote Hyderabad again, since it's already there, and it give a crave for biryani. That if somebody is visiting Charminar, so biryani is already known, but there is a hidden section that somebody is missing it out. What should be that? And what should be the ideology of a traveler when he's visiting? What should be a ideology of an operator and a guide? So we'll take that input from you now. Over to you.
Yeah, perfect. So I think to answer that question, first of all, would I want to approach inbound and outbound tourism the same way post-COVID as it is pre-COVID? I don't think so. I think all that we've done in the past, you can only take learnings from it. You cannot take that structure forward anymore. And I consult, I do menus at cruise ships. I'm thinking of what the menu is going to look like when post-COVID, because I do menus for Royal Caribbean, all their Indian restaurants. I take tourists on Indian tours outbound. So I think first thing we need to tell ourselves is, whatever we've done in the past, that formula will not work anymore. All right. And so all the formulas that we are proud of, the legacies, the structures that we've created, we shouldn't make the mistake of fitting the post-COVID consumer into the pre-COVID solution. I think that is something, we'll have to put all those trophies in one room and create another room for post-COVID trophies if we really want to work ahead. I think because all of us are crystal gazing, right? So my assumption purely comes from a fact that 42 days are a long time for you to relook and rebuild relationships. And the entire globe has rebuilt their relationship with food in 42 days. Okay, so they will not look at food the same way post-COVID as you were looking at it pre-COVID. And you cannot simply ignore the fact that you could take them to Taj Mahal and you say, let me take you to the places where the early Mughals used to eat. Won't work anymore. And the reason I say that is because their connect to food is now more recent. Their connect to food is the questions that they had in these 42 days when they had to cook. The questions and that connect purely is what I call resting on the third leg of Indian food, which was the most ignored leg, which is home cooking. We always say there's street food, there's royal food, and there's home food. In my humble opinion, I think COVID is the resurgence of home food across the world. घर के खाने की जो इज्जत है और घर के खाने के साथ जो रिश्ता है, पूरी दुनिया का पोस्ट कोविड बिल्कुल बदल जाएगा। अगर आप प्री कोविड लोगों को मार्केट्स ले जाते थे और रेस्टोरेंट्स में खिलाते थे, वो फॉर्मूला मुझे नहीं लगता अब चलेगा, because you'd rather take them to a household where they now have a newfound respect for home food. They now have a newfound understanding of home food, and they believe in smaller clusters and more personalized conversations with the cooks, not a broadcast anymore. A restaurant chef is used to a broadcast. 150 people come, he stands on a stage and he says, today's menu is this. I don't think broadcast is the medium for the incoming tourist or the outgoing tourist anymore. I think we've all discovered a personal thread with food in COVID, and we would want that will become a part of our behavior. 21 days is habit forming. This is 42 days. This is, you could technically have 2 habits formed. So, mujhe ye lagta hai, I think the biggest change that we will see post-COVID is the resurgence of Indian home food. And that is something that all of us need to stand and take note of. A lot of people coming in, if you give them a choice of saying, would you want to experience a culture through a restaurant that they no longer trust because of, like Pushpesh ji said, they are now looking at what's behind the counter, not just what's in front of the kitchen counter. Versus when you say, I'm going to take you to a traditional home and have you serve some traditional food in smaller groups, of course. I think that for me is a big avenue that is going to open up post-COVID. The connect and a household, home food has the same connect to cuisine, because the connect to culture is anyways there. चाहे वो शाही कनेक्ट हो या घर का कनेक्ट हो, अगर आप मारवाड़ी हैं तो आपका एक मारवाड़ी कनेक्ट है, और वो कनेक्ट जो है कल्चर का, एग्रीकल्चर के जरिए होगा, बिकॉज आप पकाएंगे वही जो उग रहा है. सो culture, agriculture and cuisine anyways are interlinked. In this case, the culinary peg of that trio is going to move a lot towards home food. It's going to move a lot towards that third pillar, as you always say, of cuisine, which in our case is extremely strong. So which makes me a lot more optimistic. If I'm taking an outbound tour to, let's say, France, for 3 days, whose homes will I feed them in? But you come to India, we have a big, fairly growing home chef ecosystem. जैसे वो बोल रहे थे ना, घाट घाट पे पानी बदले 3 कोस पे पानी, या 25-25 किलोमीटर पे हमारा खाना बदल जाता है, तो हाउसहोल्ड टू हाउसहोल्ड बदल जाता है. So the opportunity is huge once you suddenly open this window of people's homes, whether you dine in people's homes or whether you bring the home chef somewhere else. I think suddenly you're appealing to a big strength of our cuisine, which was long ignored. Yeah. So I think once that window opens, once we create new formulas and we open that window of Indian home food for the world, there is a huge opportunity that we present. A few countries in the world can do that. Italy can do that. China can do that. We can do that. A few countries in the world can actually take you to their home and say, let me cook something for you. Thailand can do that. So I think that there's a big window of opportunity. But at the same point in time, I think all of us would want to wait and watch for maybe 10 more days and see what is the grain of thought, because curiosity, adventure are merely symptoms of thought, right? So they come from a basic build-up that's in here, and I think that build-up is changed. How it's going to show is something that we will obviously see in the future. But I don't think we are a country that's going to rush to the restaurants and fill it up and say, मैं बहुत बेचैन हूँ, मैंने 40 दिन से रेस्टोरेंट का खाना नहीं खाया. एक स्वाभाविक रिश्ता जो है हमारे घर के खाने के साथ हम सबका था, वो हमने वापस से कहीं ना कहीं अपना एक तार ढूंढ लिया है ना? तो वो I don't think that is going to go anywhere behaviorally for our country. I think it's a generation affecting thing. I think this is something that has affected an entire generation, their mindset and their relationship to food. I don't think it's a small blip on the screen. I think this is an interval where everybody's kind of gone back and everybody's wondering how the movie is going to look like post the interval. So it's not a blip on the screen. And that's why we should not believe that the formulas that have worked so far will work later. That's it.
That was a great input, Chef, and we really thank you for posting such amazing videos on the social media. At least you are training all the chefs or home chefs around that to come up with the things at home. So I completely agree with your thought process of that there is a new window. Since there is a homestay concept already there, I guess the government will take it further with the home dining experiences in a much more organized and regulated way. So this point is very valid point from your side. And is there any specific zone you will suggest that since, as I said, we are all optimistic here and we are hoping everything will be better in the end, and with your past travel experience within India, Any specific state that you think that people should start working on? If you like to list at least 5 that where you find that the history and food could be connected nicely and the product could be created around it.
Well, I think we have a lot, and Pushpesh ji, with all due respect, will agree to what I'm saying. But I think we have completely ignored Odisha. I think I think that's one state which has outstanding potential. And that's one state that has been completely ignored off the culinary map. I think micro cuisines have been completely ignored. मुझे ये लगता है कि whether it is the Mysore area or the Mangalore area, what has happened is because of these political boundaries that were drawn for various reasons, in primarily between 47 and 57, those political boundaries have somehow dictated what the cuisine looks like. Wherein the cuisine and the culture mostly has nothing to do with those political boundaries. I think we will break those political boundaries and look at these microcultures and cuisines. But if I had to bet on 3 states, broadly speaking, I would definitely say that Orissa is a state that we could totally bet on with its vast depth of cuisine. I think I've always felt that Bihar, with its history, with its cuisine, with its culture, we have not been able to do justice to the kind of food and food connections that Bihar has. And down south, I honestly believe that there is a big potential for us to look at Andhra food, which is mostly now in Telangana. But that cuisine is something that we've completely ignored because we felt it's too spicy for the traveler to kind of look at. But I think that these are the 3 cuisines that I definitely want to look at more. But like I said, it's all of us are waiting and watching.
I couldn't agree more with your thought about Odisha. I recently visited and I'm working with some project for the food there, and it is tremendous. I've been to the tribal area as well. So I share your thought process here that it is very underrated and does carry a lot of potential for the world. And Odisha is not same as it was 20 years back. So I really urge travelers. And when you mentioned Bihar, of course, that is another territory because we have not been marketing our country pretty well as a travel country because every part of the country could be visited. So when you say or mention these 3 states, they are very helpful, or you can say very, very important inputs here because those are the areas which were not been, the territories which were not been explored by the tourism product itself. So yes.
I think I'm going to quickly add one, but I think Himachali food also has been, it hasn't really shown the way it should shine beyond the dhams. I think there's a lot more to Himachali food, especially with the foreign tourists, because a lot of it is not super spicy. It's rich, suits that region. But I think that's another cuisine that we need to talk about.
See, being in a culinary tourism chef, I mentioned that it's been 10 years I've been doing this, and it's a big myth that foreign tourists doesn't eat spicy. Trust me, I've encountered so many people who eat better than me. So I think it's no more restriction about the spice level, that myth we were carrying that foreign cannot handle spicy. So I think now it is the time that this is what it is. And the logic behind the recipe is it's to be like this. The moment you change the recipe, it could break the logic of creation of recipe because none of the recipes been in India created without a logic. So, and it has been appreciated in my past experience that people say that it is to be made as it should be. If you change the logic of spice level or something, that could break real logic behind eating it.
नहीं आप यूके में देखिए ना, यूके में हमारा खाना unnecessary spicy कर दिया गया है, हाल नई डिशेस क्रिएट कर दी गई हैं. So that also, when you are unnecessarily making it spicy, you're not doing justice to it anyways. No? So you might as well make it spicy where you need to make it spicy.
It became like a challenge dish now. Most of the food they use it as a challenge. If you can eat this, you want a challenge kind of thing. So yes, I agree to it. It's wrongly portrayed as well. So if the country market our food rightly, it is a big opportunity that people could bust out those myths. are been in the air. So yes, that was a very great input, Chef. And I'm passing on back to Rajesh ji now. Chef Rajesh is with us from the hotel. He's representing Taj Group of Hotels. And, it becomes, it brings out a very different aspect here having Chef Rajesh, because we like to, as a travel agent, we like to learn post-COVID, because this was a point made earlier that world is ready for post-COVID things behind the counter. And this is the point that Chef can answer. Chef Rajesh, we want to learn that how much ready Taj, I'm sure nobody is ready right now because there is no real outcome, nobody knows it, but if we have to say, is there a kind of plan or some kind of measures or something we have been doing? And if you have to assure your travel agents and travel companies that Taj is ready for the post-COVID culinary tourism activities. So what point would you like to mention here, Chef Rajesh?
Hi everyone, good evening. Namaskar to all of you. I wish we were meeting in a more normal circumstances, but this is the new normal. So let us take as each day goes by. I completely agree with Ranveer. I think he's told two of my cuisines which were on my radar. So being from the same fraternity, see the Odia and the Himachali are, I think, continuously underrepresented in the culinary gambit of India. So coming back to what the Taj has done is, it basically asks you, I'm asking a question, how much of India has been discovered through its taste? So that's a debate, I think, where we are looking at a coherent answer. As Rajiv asked me, are we post-COVID ready? I think yes, we are post-COVID ready. To be very candid here, I just wanted to make a small point that whenever we talk of cuisine tourism, unfortunately, it comes across as a spice store in a market followed by a selfie. So I think we need to grow far beyond what we normally do as a cuisine tourism. I think Mr. Prem has done a great job over the last 2 decades. We need to scale up what we bring to the table as a differentiator. So in Taj, probably when we do a spice tour, of course, we also do spice tour. We come back, we engage the guests in a cooking class, as Ranveer mentioned some time back. We also explain the nuances of the spices which have been collected during the tour. Mr. Pant, I think, has elaborated greatly in one of his books about the medicinal values of spices, which we try to explain to every customer who comes to our hotel and engages in a spice tour. We also can take the guest, enhance his experience, whether making him introduced to the various kind of gadgets that we use, why we use a particular gadget for a particular food. So that is how probably we can expand the culinary experience of a guest. Now coming to the Taj, we have roughly about 300 restaurants within our entire portfolio of restaurants, which covers approximately every genre of cuisine that you can mention. In the 70s, we brought the Chinese cuisine, then we brought the Mexican and this thing, and suddenly we changed the focus to cultural hotspots, whether it is Rajasthan, whether it is Goa, whether it is Kerala, and we onboarded some serious local talent to bring the local flavors out and bring it to mainstream. So this was our major contribution to this. We also can take the cuisine tourism to a different level, I think, along with the collaborative effort of Prem and other panelists who spoke some time back, is that why don't we engage our academia into this? Why can't a tourist that comes into India sees how the future of the culinary field is evolving, how the schools operate in this part of the country, in this part of the world? So that is what I think Taj brings to the table. We are absolutely COVID ready. Of course, as we go along, we prepare more and more on the way. Ms. Brar is here on the panel, which she will speak a few moments from now. I had the privilege of interacting with the Ministry of Tourism over the last 12 to 14 months, and where they organize a lot of these cultural promotions across the world. So the Taj chefs, and namely the Taj Palace chefs, were involved in festivals in Russia, in Mexico, in Vietnam, in Sudan, and one more country which I'm not able to recollect now. But the point I'm trying to make here is that these festivals and these food evoke a tremendous response in the countries. So there is a demand for food made in India. There is a demand for, and there is an acceptance of food made in India. So this, I think, is a great marketing opportunity if all of us can collaborate together along with the help of the ministry to make India as a culinary destination. And I'll be very happy if, towards the end of all this discussion, today a tourist comes into India and he says, okay, I want to see this, and then the food is built around it. As Mr. Prem said, and he's doing a tremendous effort into it, we need to reach a stage where he comes for food and then the itinerary is built around it. So that will be one stage where I think we would have taken a quantum leap into making India as culinary destination. So these are my views on it. So thank you for having me on the panel, and I'm open to any clarification here.
Oh, Chef, it was a great input, Anke, and I really thank you because you really touched some of the part that was which wasn't covered earlier. So definitely, all people who are wearing, I'm already seeing the number of questions coming in, which I'm going to come later. But now we are coming to the part of the government here. So I asked, try to understand from Bara that our government, what is the government overview? I have a list of questions for you, and which is much longer than other panelists. So I'm going to keep on barging in. But first, foremost, two of the things that first, what is the government viewpoint on the culinary tourism? And second, I just going to shoot it in pairs. So second is what you expect from the industry, what we should be ready with, because it's a two-sided effort. One cannot do it alone. So if the government think of promoting or start promoting it, what you expect from the travel industry, how we should, what should we should be ready with? And first, your viewpoint over the subject. Please, ma'am, over to you.
Thanks, Rajiv, and thanks, FICCI, for organizing this. And I'm, in fact, so honored to share the web platform with Dr. Pant. It's a pleasure to be hearing his views and also all the celebrated chefs. And I think so, starting on a lighter note, while normally the master chefs and the specialized chefs have been men, COVID has made sure that the regular men are also becoming great chefs at home. So, so I think that's been one positive fallout of COVID is that men are discovering skills that they never knew that they had, and women are, I think, turning on to do different things at home. So yeah. So while having said that, I think I'll Rajiv, even before I start addressing your specific questions, I will take on the cue from what Dr. Pant and Ranveer said that I think we are still in the middle of it all. And therefore, I'll agree with you partly that it's a great idea to start thinking. Nothing stops us from ideating. Nothing stops us from, thinking through potential, the way it exists today, and what could possibly come in the times to as we move on. But I think the immediate concern remains to be safe as a country, as a world, and to come out of this. And as we talk right now, one doesn't even know where this is going to stop. We are all wishing and hoping that it does not, the trajectory kind of sort of begins to plateau. We can only hope and pray. The government is, of course, trying to do its best. India currently seemingly managing fairly well with the amount of lockdown that has happened. And yes, 21 plus 21. So 2 habits at least can be formed and some can be given up. But yes, I think, therefore, I also agree that because of the kind of impact that COVID is happening, both geographically, financially, economically, psychologically, that something as innocuous as a virus could bring the kind of devastating effects the way it is. It's almost like a war. I think if we look at the, the impacts of COVID in terms of stopping supply chains around the world, it's probably even more than what World War could do. So perhaps the thought is that there is going to be a need for a lot of rebooting and recalibrating the world as we go along. It's not going to be easy. As you see, I myself, I don't know why, picking up a cough, and I'm already worried that I hope it is, so imagine getting a sense of insecurity. I'm coughing for the last 10 minutes and I'm wondering why. So sorry about that. So I think, yes, we need to think use this time to ideate, but it will take a while to have the fear of COVID behind us and to believe that world is going to be business as usual. No, clearly not. One, because it shall not be possible to be business as usual, even if you wanted to, because travel will see a lot of change, actual and psychological. There might be new regulations coming in. You might have new kind of certifications required, especially till the vaccine doesn't surface. So I think there are a lot of challenges waiting, and we would need to watch all that to see that where should the product actually then be pitched. Having said that, I'm not trying to sound pessimistic. I think I'll move on to the side of the other part of it, that does India have a potential? Yes, truly it does. I don't think that is something that we need to debate or work on. India's heritage on food, the fact that every home does it differently, and this is something I think all of us have experienced at some point of time. I remember we would carry our lunch boxes to office, and on certain days, especially in the summers, the usual sabzis, bhindi, karele, gobi, and there used to be a time when 8-9 of us would have lunch together, and on certain days, sabke dabbe ke andar it would be bhindi and a dal, but every bhindi was different from the other. And these are just regular moms or somebody assisting at home who would be making the food for you. I think that's the kind of diversity we have, the diversity of spices, cooking styles, oil usage, spice levels and whatnot. So diversity, yes, and we can market it. And we have been, I think, very, very gung-ho about our food, and working on it in a more organized fashion shall certainly bring a lot of result. Our friend from the tour and travels fraternity has a first-hand experience. And I'm sure we all also know how popular Indian food is. But again, having said that, if we want to look at it as a niche segment, I would say we would need to work very strategically in dovetailing it with some other products. If Ranveer talks about Orissa, I have actually fallen in love with Orissa myself. My first trip was, after many years of planning, finally happened in September. And I think I must have sold at least to 500 actual tourists after that who landed in Orissa, because I have become an absolute fan of Orissa. I'm in fact wearing a sari also today from Orissa, from one of my trips there. And the food is so amazing, but then along with food is so much else that happens there. And so if we can smartly and strategically create trails and packages, because while yes, 3, or if you even count the in-between meals, maybe 5 times food, yet that might not be the only thing that's going to get you volumes. You might get some who are only so focused on a food trail, but it would be a good idea to pitch your culinary products along with other products that a region has. And I think all the regions that are being mentioned, whether it's Orissa, whether it's Bihar, or whether it's Himachal, I'm sure we can easily do that. Coming to the other observation that home food might be the way forward for many reasons put together, I think that's not only something that we should look at that mujhe majboori mein as a country ye karna hai. I think that's where our strength lies. In fact, we should look at it like that. Otherwise, we may not even have thought of it. But here is an opportunity which is making us stop, introspect, and think that where does my strength as a country lie? And not only from the point of view of food, I think as a ministry, the thought for us is the whole sustainability paradigm that is being spoken about is to spread tourism across the country. Every home can turn into an economic unit. Every home has the potential of being a heritage unit. Every home has a potential of being a storytelling unit. So to look at the kind of potential that we have, and I think we should in fact work on that, whether it is home food which is served at home, or can we be using technology just the way that Swiggy does, or maybe Uber app does, to be sending out home foods. Maybe should we be looking at packaging materials which are using some sustainable local materials. Maybe things like that need to be brought in. I think it's time for us to think out and say that, okay, we've been forced to stay home, we've been forced to stay away from regular work practices, but let's use this opportunity to question what we were doing. and not necessarily wait for the same things to come back and believe that I can be successful only if I keep doing what I was doing. I would in fact encourage, therefore, all of you who are actively engaged in the industry of culinary world and to start thinking and to start engaging with other industries and seeing that how technology and how materials research can be brought in to sort of pan out the whole experience of India in a far more diverse fashion. Because I think somebody before me remarked that there is, whenever you go anywhere now, I think most people on all the travel marts that I have gone to have not asked only that we want to just see a monument and just stand there and get some pictures done. People actually want to walk the streets. They actually want to go into homes. They want those little immersive experiences, sitting on the potter's wheel and making an imperfect bowl. Those kind of things are fascinating the tourists and travelers far more. And I see a lot of opportunity there for in that if we create these zillions of little restaurants, those home restaurants, and curate them into experiences for the travelers, whether domestic or foreign, it would be so very wonderful. So yes, there is potential, but yes, that we need to start thinking differently, that we need to start pitching products differently. I think it would be in the fitness of times. If I look at foreign tourism, I don't think you're going to get for a whole, bunch of foreign tourists traveling around again. One, because travel is not even going to be possible for a while. And when it comes back, safeguards, security issues, so many things are going to come and haunt us for a while. So perhaps domestic tourism is what you should be looking at, hopefully soon. And no harm in preparing for the foreign tourists. Keep doing webinars, keep discussion panels open so that encourage people to think. And we got a lot of ideas. In terms of the promotions that we are already doing, I've started on 14th, we started with the webinar series from the ministry, pitching people that stay safe, stay healthy, stay home for now, but start traveling India. So we are calling it the series of Dekho Apna Desh. And within Dekho Apna Desh, I would be extremely happy if we can, I think Rajiv, you and I were having this chat yesterday on the edible India.
Yes, ma'am.
And so Indian food is not just different and diverse for people who come from overseas, but for all of us within India also. There's been so much discovery about our own foods for each of us in the last 2 decades. I remember my father's generation, if you told them that dosa, for them, dosa was not food, And similarly, I'm sure when you told somebody down south that Rajma Chawal and the fetish that we have in Punjabi homes for Rajma Chawal is not something that can be understood ordinarily. So we have ourselves learned to discover so much about our foods, and I think there's still a lot of undiscovered zones. As Ranveer said, I think Odisha, hugely undiscovered, Himachal, hugely undiscovered, Maharashtra also hugely undiscovered, Gujarati cuisine, Andhra cuisine. There's just so many elements to it. Let's start creating the products. Let's start working with our own people. Let's be part of the Dekho Apna Desh edible train. I'm extremely happy to work. Yeah, edible India, incredible edible India.
Yes.
So something like that. And I think it's a great opportunity. And I am going to continuously look at it like that it's a great opportunity for us to actually stop, think, and then move forward and only bring practices from the past, which we really think need to be continued with, which are bringing us still results. Give up on things. Also start using the new technologies and the supply chains that technology has made possible and take this whole thing forward. But in the meantime, I think I have been using this, that satark rahiye, swasth rahiye. I think that is primary, because not only from the direct point of view of remaining healthy, but even if we want to sell tourism as a product, it's important that we as a country are able to contain the numbers, because countries and territories that are relatively going to remain untouched, and I'm saying relatively because I think there's practically no country left today that does not have a case. But if we can work to making sure that we remain relatively safe and can pitch ourselves, therefore, as a country where COVID did not impact us so much, that much faster we'll be able to get tourists back, both domestic and foreign. Because, I mean, let's understand that the moment the world opens, the first concerns are going to be going back to work, going back to businesses, and also going back to man days of work. Tourism will remain a relatively more discretionary activity, and so it's probably going to take a little longer to actually start buzzing again. But let's definitely start thinking and doing our promotions in the meantime. And so stay safe, stay healthy, and we are there with you for promotions, whatever support that you need from us. Would be more than happy to assist Edible India go forward.
And that was the initial question, ma'am. As I said, that I have a load of questions for you. But one of the things that primary concern, even in the question answers coming in, I see it as a concern, point of concern by the authorities, by the people who are coming to the, rather say, street food joints or a restaurant. And since Arogya Setu app, which is, I recommend everyone who is listening should download it. It's a very good app, and I was reading about it too. But is there an arm extension to that app one can do that every food joint or a street food cart vendor could upload a picture or a basic countermeasure that he has taken and he's approved by that certain authority? Because going door to door and checking all the outlets will be a different and difficult task. But if we are able to create such arm extension, since we are trying to, encourage this Arogya Setu among all the population, and since the tool is already handy with them, that if you can create some arm extension within that app, that people can self, examine or assess their outlet or post the pictures, which can be digitally monitored that, okay, these are the basic countermeasures one have done or asked for, and he has done it, uploaded the picture. This is okay to go as e-pass or certificate of his outlet. So one can be little assured as a consumer that he's good to go with it, that, okay, this guy have done basic ask from the governments or hygiene factors. So this is my personal request and suggestion to you here, that you should speak to the department, because one of the basic fundamental is the restaurant and tourism, either it's a domestic or international. If it is happening, people will be afraid to, and what could assure them is one of those certificates that will be checked by the authority. So if you work on the parameters, one can, self-examine their place until the authority really physically visit their places. This could work out, I guess. So this is just a suggestion to you, ma'am, that you should speak to the team of Arogya Setu, because we hope that every Indian will carry this app soon. And product development circuits. Any circuits as a government do you think that one should develop? Already mentioned by Chef Ranveer about the Odisha, Bihar, and any other theme the government plan or think that government will help if any travel agent or government is coming up with circuit that one should create over the food? Because I am still adamant about the making culinary tourism as a mainstream with other thing on the backseat. Of course, there's going to be a tourism, sightseeing and everything, but I'm still concerned about keeping, because at least we have a logic to say that our food is medicinally equipped or specifically designed in a way that could boost your immunity with multiple spices that we are using. So over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, so thanks, Rajiv. Those are valuable suggestions on the hygiene bit. And I would say again that gives us actually a great opportunity, because hygiene of food places, especially if you're talking of working on street foods and making that as a selling point for our country, we should anyways have been thinking. Perhaps we were not thinking enough. So it's a great opportunity to think about it. In terms of an app, maybe, yes, might be a good idea, but we would have to work with all of you, the associations that drive the industry, to see what works. Because while one would like to bring in regulation, but we also understand that regulation is always a very double-edged sword, especially when you're looking at implementing it down to the street level. And you wouldn't want to bring in things which will further complicate out things. The good thing now is that with the amount of social media and the amount of reviews that are possible, whether we see TripAdvisor or when we see Zomato and the number of reviews that one can give, yes, I'm sure we can work but the state governments and the various associations would have to work with the ministry to see that which is the most workable and the least least difficult model in terms of compliance, in terms of certifications, in terms of displaying that. I think we have examples of country like Singapore, where even in a small food court, which is very, very regular everyday food, there is classification. You can actually see the alphabets A and B and stuff. So yes, I think it's time for us to start thinking in those lines. So thanks for that suggestion. Would definitely work with all of you on that. In terms of circuits, yeah, you wanted to say something?
No, you're right, circuit.
In terms of these circuits, again, I would say that in a country like ours, where we are still, good in some sectors on connectivity and infrastructure, and in some we are still in the process. There's a lot of work in progress. It would be good to, while work on food circuits, but it would be also strategically more smart to make sure that get areas where there is already footfall happening, where you know that there is a reasonable amount of connectivity, and where there are stay facilities. So I think you will have to look at a more comprehensive business plan when you do the circuits. And we are open to working with you, as I suggested to you when we had a long chat before the seminar, that it would be very nice if we can work together, if you and we exchange data. If you, for example, let's just take Varanasi for a moment. I know that Varanasi has huge footfalls. I know Agra has huge footfalls. So do you perhaps know that. But I perhaps can add a few things to that. But if you tell me that, look, Agra ke yahan jaakar hum sirf Taj Mahal dekh ke do jagah pe kha ke aa jate hain, but I know that there is a wealth of trail available on the way. Mathura kyun nahi hum ruk jate only for food? I would say that makes a lot of strategic, sense in terms of positioning. If you're going to try and look for destinations right now, if I get down in Delhi, then if I have to drive 12 hours and after that I have to go for another 6 hours, you will still get customers, but then you will get very, very small, very niche people who would prioritize going for that kind of an experience. You can surely do that. But if you're looking at scaling up, I think then it's a good idea for us to work together on synergizing on a few other things that drive tourism and tourist inflow.
Definitely, ma'am. And we were talking about, I should quote that we spoke yesterday about the storyteller program that Government of India has started. And my suggestion was that you should recommend that to every travel agent, student, whoever has been there, because it's a package of a good knowledge. Because every travel professional, even that he is not going out in the field, it's a good platform. So you can talk about it now.
Yeah, in fact, thanks for reminding me. There's so much to always talk about in tourism, and especially when you're talking of food, there's so much to talk about that one forgets a few tactical things. So the ministry, in fact, has recently started the Tourist Facilitator Certification Program, and it is costing only 2,000 rupees to register yourself. Rajiv is laughing. We are working on your proposal to see if we can encourage the men of our country to take that program in the times of lockdown. Rajiv, that proposal is still under consideration of waiving off the fees.
I should mention that we have been asked to the ministry to make that for the lockdown period to waive the fee for that, so that more people are encouraged to join that particular program. Please, ma'am, over to you.
We'll definitely consider that, but then there are implications, so I wouldn't like to comment on that straight away. But definitely would like to encourage everyone to join that program. It's a great overview program for a basic facilitator program, and we hope to in fact escalate it into not just using it as a facilitator, but eventually turning it into an e-marketplace where you are trained and certified as we don't want to use the word guide, because actually this is far more than just being a guide. It's going to be more like a local host. So you could go pick up the tourist from the airport, you could add that as your service. You could bring the tourists back home if you think you have facilities of creating a homestay. You could give them food from your home for whatever number of days. You could source food from somebody else's home if you wanted to add variety. So that's the kind of scope that we are building for this program. And therefore, I would encourage everybody to join in. It's a very, very simple program, but it's educative, it's immersive, it helps you to understand your culture. And in fact, I'm going to use the platform and also request all of you who are celebrated in your own fields, Dr. Pant, in our Dekho Apna Desh series, it would be so heartening and so, sort of supportive for us as a ministry and as a campaign which we've started, if we can have you with us on one of the days and talking of, I mean, one webinar is not enough for you. You need many, many, many of them. But if you could come on board with us, we would be honored. And Ranveer, if you are still there, it would be really nice if you could come along and do some trails. And Chef Rajesh, all of you have so much talent, and I would encourage that you use our platform. In the first Dekho Apna Desh seminar, which we did, we had close to 6,000 registrations. And the second one, which we did on Calcutta, had about 3,700 registrations. And we are doing tomorrow one on Mahabalipuram, and then we are doing one on Humayun's tomb. So if I did Delhi, and if I can now follow it up with cuisine of Delhi, then you're creating an integrated package for somebody who's coming there. If we did Calcutta, and if we can do another round on Calcutta on foods, and again, one webinar for Calcutta, foods will not be enough. There'll be Armenian food, Anglo-Indian, the regular Bengali food, and so many others. If I think of Mahabalipuram, I can do a whole vertical on that. So I think even for interest creation, Rajiv, if we can work together on doing these sort of things on webinar platforms, it would be so very nice to synergize on capacities.
Definitely, ma'am, and the team is up for it, I guess, those who are panel, and lot more forces behind there who is ready to team up for the India First movement here. So we keep our country first here before our professional commitments, because if the country grows, of course, we all going to get some part of it. And we come with a thought process to increase the size of pie rather than getting a bigger chunk out of the pie. So definitely we all—
Yeah, no, why I say that is, because, and I must use the platform therefore to give a compliment to Ranveer. I had put it in the family group because incidentally we share the same last name. And so I put it in my family group, and my cousin's in New York, who is miles away. I don't think he even knows how to make cha. And even he says, even I know Ranveer Brad. So I said, like, this is the ultimate compliment to Ranveer. If my cousin also knows about you, he's a full-time doctor and he's forever found only in the wards. But even he found time to comment on what I said, that I'm going to be participating in this webinar. And he says, oh, I know Ranveer. I said, oh my God. So that's when I spoke to you, Rajiv, yesterday, that somebody like Ranveer, Dr. Pant, no one has forgotten you from the 80s. We've seen all the series that you've helped to research on. People like you can add a lot of value to a tourist coming in. So your presence on our webinars can really work as a great catalyst. And
More than
therefore,
more than
really, really, thank you.
So I'll definitely coordinate those and try that we can match up to the calendar that you got. And as we mentioned, I will still like to talk about the Culinary Tourism report as India Food Tourism Organization and FICCI we have done, which we're supposed to share with you. So which is a broader picture about the culinary tourism. And we have done a detailed knowledge paper, which is well researched. And we have just delayed it now intentionally to bring up the post-COVID analysis to it as well. And since the COVID is going on right now, so we are working and taking the data with the existing resources and try that if that report and knowledge paper could help the industry to design or talk about the culinary tourism in the future as a product. And definitely, as you mentioned about the team, that of course, either we talk about Aksab and as the chef mentioned here, and Chef Wadwa, that we are all there as a support, whatever make our country better and much more accessible to anyone, we will be there to talk about it. Now I have a few questions that if the panel is okay to go ahead with, and I will mark it by since Chef is there on the screen. Chef, I have one question for you here, where we talk about the guests coming for food tourism will prefer to have home cooked food, but there should be some specific menu one should look at, and it has been asked by Mr. Rajesh that as you mentioned about the home food, one how should present and what should be the menu one should think about it. if you can, I'm sure it's a vague term, but still, if you have to answer it in the course value, maybe you can answer the way that how one should talk about it.
So I'll quickly answer that. I'll basically, before I answer that, I also want to push this envelope to ma'am also, that maybe in the bigger scheme of things, when we're promoting the country, maybe we should also start both regulating and marketing our homes, home food, and the culture of Indian home cooking as well. That part I just missed in the beginning. But to quickly answer Mr. Rajesh's question, I think जो खाना आपको पसंद है, वही खाना सामने वाले को भी पसंद आएगा, because we connect with a very plain and simple thread called taste. So you don't really have to think too much as to what should I be feeding them. We should feed people the food that we love, that makes us excited. It's as simple as that, and represents us. जितना आप कलई करते जाते हैं, जितना आप layer of thought चढ़ाते जाते हैं खाने के ऊपर, उतनी वो घर के खाने से instinctiveness, rawness और spontaneity निकलती जाती है. If it is raw, real, and that's essentially the food you need to serve.
Another question for you, Ranveer. It is from IHMCS Jaipur, and they have been asking about these Tooth to Earth Trail. Can we talk about a carbon footprint message? Because since you share a big impression on the social media, and the message is going there, one should also talk about the carbon footprint on the dining, basically how we can reduce it in the channel. What are the new things you suggest, since everybody is, and we're going to reopen the world again, and everything is clean and much more nicer right now. So when we are bouncing back, what are the basic things one should avoid getting back in the system?
I think lalach is what one should avoid. Carbon footprint जो है, बहुत simply अगर बोलें तो carbon footprint is a pure function of lalach. अगर आप सर्दियों में गर्मियों की चीज खाना चाहते हैं, गर्मियों में सर्दियों की चीज खाना चाहते हैं, ऐसी चीजें रोज खाना चाहते हैं जो रोज 6000 किलोमीटर 20000 किलोमीटर चल के आप तक पहुंचती है, तो so I think that is the only answer. If you eat local, if you eat seasonal, and if you eat what grows around you, you're automatically taking care of carbon footprint. You're automatically sustainable. You're automatically in line with how the nature intends it to be. So for me, carbon footprint is a direct function of seasonality and locality. Eat hyper local, eat hyper seasonal,
And they are getting the question, but I'm going to put another one, which is very relevant. As a chef, one organization, I don't have a name, but he's saying, does my career in culinary schooling will affect my learning from the COVID? I really wanted to put this because I'm sure a lot of students who are going through the culinary learning will be thinking about
It's a very, very good question. It's a very good question. I think we have to answer this for all the students who are still studying hospitality, tourism, culinary. Fortunately, and I say this to a German chef that I trained with, he told me, and I've never forgotten this, he said, son, as long as people have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you'll have a job. So I don't think people have stopped having breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I don't think people will stop having breakfast, lunch, and dinner post-COVID. I think the norms are going to get redefined. I think there is going to be a little bit of a intermediary window of reshuffling. जैसा मैम ने कहा कि भाई वो फॉर्मूले जो आपके पहले चलते थे शायद नहीं चलेंगे, उनकी learnings भले चल जाएं, और उसके बीच में there's a certain window that the world is going to shuffle in. So probably you're just feeling the effects of the beginning of that window. But I want to assure everybody who's a hospitality student, who's a culinary student, that it's the same thing. As long as जब तक लोग खाना खाएंगे, आपको अपनी नौकरी की फिक्र करने की जरूरत नहीं है.
दुकान चलेगी. Don't worry about it. दुकान चलेगी. But that's good. And now I would request if somebody can put ma'am, DG ma'am on the screen. So there are a lot of questions. So those who are listening me, please ignore my ignorance here, because there are so many questions. I can't read every question here, but I randomly picked a few which I felt that could be quickly answered. So one is, ma'am, we must have a formal inspection audit. Prestigious dining spots which have larger tourist numbers, municipal corporation must do same. Street, I guess that we have spoken about it, that about the Arogya Setu So it completely goes off the radar here. And but a similar study conducted by any agency on the loss of business specific to the travel, the trade with the different component, including transportation guide, because when we say about the travel industry, we overall talk. But one of the Capi tours been asking, and the guy is called Monu, who's been asking that will there be an outcome about specific elements which are not directly connected with the travel, but are been serving in the travel industry, will be considered if something coming up for them as a bailout, or I think they are talking about here the packages. So I think it's not right, but if you'd like to answer that, how would you say it?
No, so in terms of the distress that the entire tourism and hospitality sector is undergoing, the various associations have been continuously in touch with the ministry. And since the bailout packages per se come from the Ministry of Finance, so all the concerns have been taken up with the Ministry of Finance. In fact, in the last some weeks, it's an ongoing exercise. In fact, even yesterday, the Honorable Minister had a meeting with the various representatives. So the government is very, very aware in terms of identifying as to who truly is in tourism. See, the problem in the sector is it's also very unorganized and not necessarily registered with us in a particular manner. So you could be running a unit, but you may not be registered with the Ministry of Tourism per se. And till we don't have that data, then you get classified more as a MSME, as a medium and a small sized entrepreneur, or you could be part of the unorganized sector. So you will be looked after. Now, after which segment or under which ministry from, but I think the Prime Minister has also made very, very obvious his concern for the certain segments of society, and packages are coming in. Even today, the RBI has eased some lending norms, and let's hope that all that helps in cash flows. And it has also been indicated in the government that this is not it. They will continuously evaluate and see where the problems sort of increase and how to stand together with the people of the country. It's a tough time. I mean, there is no question on that. And but I'll in fact take a cue from again from what Ranveer said, that it somewhere also takes us back to thinking as a civilization that have we perhaps not been over consuming. I think these are great days to think on all that too, that in periods of lockdown, none of us has been able to access any market, nothing at all. But many of us are doing fine even without doing that. So I think humanity at large has to start thinking on reducing its needs.
Another question from a travel industry that since they are considering culinary tourism as one of the products. So do we can see further more cooperation with different ministries, with the tourism ministry like Ayush, to work with the travel industry and develop those knowledge they carry about Ayurveda and all those things in the industry that which can be helpful to market our products?
So can we see such tie-ups? We already do a lot of coordinated work, and we are open to suggestions. If you have some more ideas, please send them across. We're very happy because interministerial coordination remains as a continuous working process. But then if there is something more specific, then it can be taken up on priority also.
See, question answers are never-ending process, so I'm going to limit myself here. Yes. One last question I would really like to ask, because it's a very specific question came for Prateek Hira ji, where somebody has asked that how you see your future employee, what knowledge he should carry if he want to work in a culinary tourism industry. So it is a time for him to learn, and what you suggest that student that he should carry a knowledge for himself to be a future employee.
Yes, I think it's a very valid question. And before I come to the answer of this question, I would like to put it in two parts, because what we are at times seeing that we are merging the general tourism with culinary tourism. Though culinary tourism is a very specialized field. It's a very unique field. Like Ranveer and Mrs. Barar said, माँ और मासी के हाथ की भिंडी भी अलग-अलग होती है. So that is the kind of diversification that we have. And when we are doing these tours, we are either a specialist operator or a general tour operator. So culinary is such a subject which cannot be addressed by a general tour operator. Now, coming back to the question that the student has raised, first of all, don't get stressed, don't get bothered with COVID. This is just a pause, and it will pause for another, say, 1 year or 18 months at the most, because I did one sort of an article a few days ago where I deduced that the inbound tourism will come up the way it was within next 18 months. So within that time, it is a good time for, like ministry is doing, it's a commendable job that they are creating an atmosphere of curiosity within the markets through these webinars and different kind of things that they are doing. So you also can enhance your skills in terms of culinary studies, culinary tourism, because these will all be specialist food curators. When we are talking about home chefs and home cuisine, my company started the first sort of a tour, the food walk in 1995, when the foreign travelers were, not the foreign travelers, but the DMCs and the operators were jittery about letting their clients eat some kind of a roadside kebab or a paratha or a pakoda or whatever. But then it lasted, and it became a very kind of a sort. Now, today, if you see, all the cities are doing so many food walks. Another point is that there has to be a specialist operator. I might differ a bit when we say that the culinary or the cuisine, culinary tourism can go along with the general tours. Of course it can, but then there is a 53% global market which is only traveling for food. So we can be a good destination with, it's a fabulous point. I mean, going to homes and eating, people are already doing it. It is not documented. It is not a part of our scheme, but we know that we are, as operators, we are doing this thing already. So there are groups, there are FITs who are taken to homes, and it's a home cooking kind of an experience for them. They get hands-on cooking experience, but this is just the right time for students to hone their skills, to hone their soft skills, go into studying a lot, many subjects. Why only culinary? But as a student, you can study anything. It could be photography, it could be video editing, which will be because we are talking of 360 degrees employment these days. Yeah. So post-COVID, this will change. So we will not have specialized employees. We'll have to see employees who can do many things with just two hands that they have. Back to you, Raj.
Yeah, that was great. I saw that article and it was wonderful. I request everyone to find that article from Mr. Prateek Hira. And I also want to take an opportunity to wish you all a little in advance. Tomorrow is the World Food Travel Day. So all people who are listening and hearing, I request everyone, if they're coming up on the social media tomorrow, should hashtag World Food Travel Day or India Food Travel Day along, and Edible India as a hashtag for the post any food they are doing, because we need to bring the country up. So hashtag Edible India will work. And tomorrow is the World Food Travel Day. So I really wish everyone in advance for World Food Travel Day tomorrow. And I really like to thank, because I'm concluding here, because it's a never-ending discussion and such an amazing panel that everybody has so much to talk about. And it's hard to limit the time, but we definitely promise you to come back again. And I really want to thank Mr. Dept Chinoy for such an amazing opportunity for us to hold up these amazing dignitaries on this platform, and the team behind the scene, Mr. Manish Ahuja, Anirban Chatterjee, and so on, because it's hard to take everybody's name here, but such an amazing, because I've been dealing with these all people from quite time now, and they have done their enough for getting this thing work out. And I'm sure this is not, it's just a beginning. I think the outcome of this is that we should go more specific to state-wise understanding food and such webinars, as ma'am mentioned. We're going to be working out as a team soon and coming up with the more state-specific analysis, starting with you can say we'll pick up the broader ongoing tourism product and try to develop the new, so that the pie should be shared among all countries rather than being some specific circuits. And I think that's where I conclude myself here. And I really thank all the audience and apologize for not taking up their questions for the panel today. Thank you, Dr. Pushpesh Pant. Thank you, Chef Ranveer Brar, Mr. Prateek Hira, and Mr. Prem Syal, Chef Rajesh Wadhwa for being on the panel. Thanks again, FICCI, and we hope to come up again some interesting food. And meanwhile, tomorrow is the hashtag Edible India and World Food Tourism Day. So please, guys, do post something about it, whoever listening to this thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv, for conducting it so wonderfully. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye.